Just over a year ago, Denver police found themselves in the front lines of racial justice protest. And while the majority of the demonstrators were peaceful, violent clashes and property damage happened many times.
And in the wake of it all, the Denver office of the Independent Monitor reviewed the police response, and its report flagged instances of questionable use of force and a lack of preparation. Denver 7 Sloan Dickey is live tonight. And Sloan, tonight we heard directly from Denver's police chief, and he laid out exactly what he wants to see changed.
Yeah, that report from the Office of the Independent Monitor was released back in December. It found that the Denver Police Department failed to follow some of its own policies during those George Floyd protests back in May. It also found several areas where the department needs to change. Well, tonight, the Denver Police Chief outlining several of those points, point by point.
Ultimately, the goal of this report is to improve our response.
Months after the Office of the Independent Monitor released its report calling the Denver Police Department ill-equipped to handle last summer's George Floyd protests, Denver's police chief says he's committed to implementing change.
We're committed to training our officers. We're committed to looking at what type of tools are effective.
The recommendations range from improving the use of body-worn cameras to changing the tactics of when less lethal force is used. The chief is implementing the changes amid fresh calls for racial justice in Minnesota and as the nation waits for a verdict in the case against a former police officer charged in the death of George Floyd.
I expect the community to want detailed information, even regarding, say, if the verdict with George Floyd, what's being prepared for that.
Denver Police Chief Paul Pazen says when it comes to body cameras, all personnel, regardless of rank, are required to wear one and make sure it's activated. The department also has tasked a less lethal coordinator to provide proper training for officers.
Communication is key to much of this, right? People deserve, they're demanding to know what their police department is doing.
And Chief Pazen says during future protests, officers are required to give multiple dispersal orders before using any type of force.
The ability, especially on the management side of how the officers are managed during a crisis, was a big one.
The chair of the Oversight Board says he wants more than just bullet points, but a plan to reconnect with Denver and all of the people living here.
Ensuring that the culture in the department is on par with the diverse culture of this city.
But community leaders agree the time for change is now.
Being proactive with gaining trust to the very people that you're going to have to try and corral during the situation.
Sloan Dickey, Denver 7.
Tomorrow, we are sitting down one-on-one with Denver Police Chief Paul Pazen, and we'll get more insight into changes within the department and hear his take on the latest push for racial justice after Daunte Wright was killed at the hands of police. So stay with Denver 7 for a lot more coverage on this.